Welcome back. This time I am with RANI Eng. She's president of We the Future Coalition, and I want to talk with her the situation of the Democratic Party and whether it is responding properly to the challenge presented by Trump. Um, Let me just present you with some statistics, some polls, excuse me. Only 2% of Trump voters regret their vote for Trump. The 64%, I believe it's 64% demand new leaders among Democrats. Uh, Even though the approval of Trump on the economy is terribly low, more voters trust Republicans over Democrats on the economy. What all that tells you?
Um, what it tells me initially is that something's got to change, right? There's something wrong here, and the solution isn't going back to some sort of status quo.
Mhm.
It is evident that the citizens of the United States of America are desperately craving and wanting something different. So, whatever the Democrats may have thought worked in the past or what those ideals were that America has, those things have changed. And so the Democratic Party, with its approach and its values, will need to evolve as well.
I'd say that the values are the same. If you, what happens is that the way of tackling or implementing the path to those values is what has got terribly discredited. For instance, the I believe the if you read about the New Deal,
Hmm.
Roosevelt, four times
Yes.
president, would still
Hmm.
today be a hero of the working class, while Kamala Harris lost the working class, those who making less than $100,000 for
Hmm.
the first time since since I believe
Hmm.
2004. So
Yes.
I believe the values are the same. So the values of opportunity, of the values of the American dream. The matter is that the Democratic Party is not up to the task. You add, there is a Democratic senator that described pretty much what is happening, and I agree with respect to the reasons of this discredit. Is weak and woke. You see,
Uh-huh.
you see, Schumer is practically an involuntary comedian with his from his very strong letter to his claim that he changed the Trump's budget bill because he changed the name to all kind of ridiculous things that are reasons for scorn. So that project weakness, and people don't trust the future to weak leaders. And then, though I don't believe that the main reason Kamala Harris lost was the factor of the identitarian left, I believe it was a very strong second reason because you see, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's already invented. The Pew Research has studies service about what are the priorities for Black people, for Latino people. They are not blackface, they are not Latinx, they are opportunities in healthcare, in education, in the concerns about the economy. So, do you agree with that?
So I think, let's go through the 3 points. I think the first thing was addressing whether the values have changed or if they've evolved. The second item I believe you mentioned was the for
The the
the
weakness of the
the weakness
Democratic
or
Party's
woke, right?
projects.
Weakness or woke. Yep. And then the third item was kind of how maybe Kamala Harris had missed the mark in reaching those working class Americans.
and
So, oh, go ahead.
and the identitarian left. That I don't believe it was the main reason, but I do believe it was the second reason.
Was the what left? What was that? I apologize.
The identitarian left, the woke left,
Yes. Okay.
because
Yes. Okay. So for values, my reaction there is I do agree with you that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are still the core values of, right, the American system and what we value. However, I do think some values have shifted in the way of maybe let's go like a layer below that, or the big picture, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I think, when the New Deal came out, right, the
Mhm.
values at that point were about rebuilding, working, and education, right? It was a transformative time in American history.
Basically opportunity. What
Opportunity, right?
mhm.
But now, let me counter that is things have changed now. People do want opportunity. Maslow's law, right? You have to be sheltered, fed, and safe in order to think about anything else. However, now I do think that there is an emerging value that the American people are demanding around well-being, happiness. They don't want to be worked to the bone, right? They don't want to
Mhm.
have to hustle hard for everything. They are over this overly capitalistic environment that we've created, right? Like they don't want to be seen as a resource anymore. They don't want to just be seen as a number anymore. They're realizing that they're more of that. And that is, I think, a new nuance that's in our lives today that wasn't there then. And I will tell you, President Trump, one thing that he does is he speaks to people's feelings on how they want. And now it matters a lot more. Um, Going into the weak and woke conversation there, I mean, I don't think I agree with weak and woke, but what I will say is we are weak. We need to be stronger. We need to toughen up and speak up when things are not right. And even if that hurts our bottom line in our companies, in our grants, and what we're getting from the government, we have to make decisions from what we believe in and what we stand in and not be worried about our assets. I'm not sure if you just saw President Obama did a speech just yesterday or the day before, I believe.
Yeah.
He called out the Democrats saying, you need to toughen up. Like, if it means that you're not going to get to remodel your kitchen with the extra profits you're going to make, but it means you're standing up for what's right, we're going to have to make those decisions. Otherwise, if we're going to let that capitalistic view rule whether this decision is a good one or not because of how it affects the bottom line, then we're a part of that system that's a problem. So, I think that radicalness on either side is wrong. So I would say if you say that some left-leaning people are too woke, listen, there are right-leaning people that are too woke in their own way, right? That's
I know,
radical,
yeah.
radical.
I
It's not right in either side.
that's
Yeah.
yeah. You know from our pre-interview that yeah, I am
Yeah.
against the streams because
Exactly. Extremes too
but
much.
in the case of the Roosevelt, if you let me, I can now that you mentioned the issue of capitalism, he saved capitalism because the version of capitalism before Roosevelt was one in which government have no role in the economy.
Mhm.
And pretty much as the same version of capitalism uh, Trump preaches because he wants to go back to the McKinley era, even on the issue of tariffs. And actually, what Roosevelt proposed was if you have done the right thing, the government should get your back. So
Yeah.
you have the opportunity to better yourself. So, and that's the message that is more appealing today. That could be more appealing today. But for me, it's very telling. Do you remember the expansion of the child tax credit when it
Yes.
expired? Who mo-
Hmm.
who went to the streets to protest? Who demanded in town halls the the extension of the tax benefit? Nobody. they want what they want is the opportunity of bettering themselves. And one, as Paul Krugman himself agrees on that. One special one basic tool is organizing. So unionization, and second, that the government has must be able to get your back. While the so if you have a claim before the Department of Labor, that claim is seen not in 2 years, but in a few weeks, because otherwise you have no real protection. So those are
Hmm.
the things the people are expecting, even though they cannot formulate them. And would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. So the first point talking about how capitalism and the government's relationship with each other. So I think that having the government involved in our economy is vital and very important. And the reason that I say this is we have outsourced doing good to those that have the most money and the government taking a bit of a backseat, right? So right now, we have to rely on the Bill Gates of the world, the Jeff Bezos of the world, for how much money they're willing to donate to
Charity,
fund,
charity, in
right?
other words. Mhm.
Exactly, charity. But it's still at their discretion.
Mhm.
These billionaires are the ones that are making the decisions on what they care about
Mhm.
that will shape the future of our like upcoming human lives. Whereas it should be the government where we have people that are elected to represent the voice of the people on what they want to be focused on. And we've come, because of capitalism, that has become, I'm not saying that I'm anti-capitalism, there's a balance. But where we are right now is that's totally crushed, right? We have the
What
people that
happens
are
is that
rich all
what happens is that you have different versions of capitalism.
over.
FDR has a capitalism, but that was a humane way of capitalism that is supported by most economists today. What you had with Herbert Hoover was basically a kind of capitalism that was laissez-faire
Right.
capitalism.
Right, exactly. Laissez-faire, it'll
And
work
with
itself
Trump, you don't
out.
have even that. With Trump, what you have is crony capitalism, because
Yes, yes, yes. So
it's
I
for my
agree. I didn't
friends.
want to clarify that I like capitalism. It has a lot of benefits, but to you, it's nuanced, right? There's different ways to practice it. So right now we're in this situation where it's turning into kind of an oligarchy, right? And now these billionaires from around the world, they meet and together they decide what things that they want to spend their money on. And the reason is, okay, that's great. They also get tax breaks and stuff for doing these things. But the thing is, do you think that the billionaires are ever going to fund an initiative that is against their self-interest? Do we
No,
trust them to do that?
besides that, what kind of government do you have if it cannot plan? If it depends on the planning or the wishes and whims of donors, so that's absurd. But that brings me to another issue that was studied by
Oh,
Pew
I did want to
Research.
touch on one thing before we move to
Mhm,
that.
mhm,
You
mhm,
said mobilization and people coming together. So
mhm,
you are so correct that that is why I think We the Future Coalition and all movements and coalitions are so important, is because when it comes down to it, the thing that separates us as people from other animals that are closely related to us, primates and other sapiens,
mhm.
is humans have the ability to work together. Our flexibility and willingness to trust each other at a massive scale, that's what makes us powerful, right? Like we can organize. There is power in the way that humans come together to do things. So if we can, I think right now, there's a lot of you versus them or you versus other, which can be isolating. So we need to see that our power and our strength is when we as humans all work together for the benefit of each other, because that's how we've gotten this far. And so that's why, to me, creating a space where people can come together and be in the coalition, I just think is my part of something that I can help do.
Now, that brings me to another point, the discredit of institutions. Um, the largest expression of the social contract is government. And if you see the pure research, the trust in government, has reached historic lows, not with Trump. It reached it with Obama and stay low during Trump, Biden, and Trump too. So you have this problem. The people don't trust government, and they don't trust government in part because of the poor way both politicians, both parties they have treated the issues that are the bread and butter issues that are vital for them. So the
So,
question is, how do you revive that trust in government?
oh, how do we revive the trust in government? So I think the first thing is people don't feel heard. D- Like, we're not giving the people what they want. And so I think the first thing is to be very clear. I mean, I'm going to approach this from my perspective as somebody
Mhm,
that's a corporate leader,
mhm.
is something that's expected of like every C-suite in a big corporation is every year they outline these are our goals as a company. This is where we're headed. All of our efforts are going to be in that direction. I think right now there's so much noise. We don't know that our core focus is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness anymore. So we needed to define like these are the major things we're working on. We've heard what the American people want. We voted on it, and this is what you're going to get. Of course, nothing is ever promised or guaranteed, but there has to be better communication because the communication that we hear as citizens right now is just a lot of arguing between the parties, right? The Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So that's going to trickle down into the population. If our representatives can't find ways to work together to come to compromises and conclusions that are good for America, then how can we expect all the people that they represent to do that as well, right? Like they are the spokespeople for us. It could be very possible that America is not necessarily as divided as what we see in the Senate and the House. But the
No,
people that are picked to represent them,
it's not. If you, for instance, I was checking the polls of Latino voters in 2024,
yeah.
the post-election polls, and
Mhm.
you see the priorities of Latino people were not like MAGAs, were
Yeah.
the same as before. Why? Because Latinos had voted not for Trump but against the Democrats.
Hmm.
So that tells you a lot about where is the problem and where to start. The problem is that activism. The problem with activism today is that, and that's something that unfortunately started with Obama, because under the excuse of having discipline campaigns, they practically were top-down structures where activists were only convoked to cheerlead the candidate and not to give their input to the party. So the party was not interested in what you wanted to say, in what voters wanted to say. They only wanted you to be in the rallies and to cheerlead for the leaders and to knock on doors, but that's all. So, and that's part of the problem, that we are the activism has been in the last decade structured as cheerleading campaigns that rally around leaders. When I created this channel, I wanted to try to plant the seed for something different that is really around ideas and use
Hmm.
those ideas to make candidates accountable or
Hmm.
to let candidates know that they cannot use you. And then, because in the end of the day, if you are a well-intentioned organizer, the people are going to feel disappointed not only with the candidate, but also with you. But the candidate next time will replace you with somebody else and will
Hmm.
try to get reelected, right?
Hmm.
So I believe we should, and we know where are those ideas. Well, you have the starting point. You know what people want. You have the service or the preference for black people. So you know lots of ideas that go under the radar. You can start building from there and demand candidates to take a position with respect to those ideas. So they
Hmm.
don't end up. Look, before I let you speak because I have spoken a lot, it's laughable that Obama has had many merits in the issue of the financial crisis, the Great Recession. But it's laughable that that president, his signature bill was Romney Care because it was not even Obamacare. Obamacare originally had a public option that would have helped a lot to prevent much of the abuses committed by the insurance companies. No,
Hmm.
his signature bill was Romney Care.
Hmm.
That's laughable, right?
So I'll have to say I respectfully disagree with the activism problem for Obama's in the Obama era. And the reason is because I think the reason we saw a rise of activism at that point is because now a larger population of the United States felt comfortable practicing their freedom of speech and being more involved and vocal. So I believe initially that is a good thing, right? That's one of the best things about being an American.
Mhm.
However, it's a double-edged sword, though. Now, though, I believe one of the ways we have to revive is that working together, that hive mind kind of thing, because now we have such passionate activism that I respect people's activisms of fighting for what they believe in and doing the research and going the extra mile. But now we're like separated, right? It's like Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ rights, women's health, right? So we have all of these different things that people are so passionate about, and everybody's pushing, right? They're pushing against the system, they're pushing against the institution, but they're weak. They're spread out so thin. If there's any way that these groups, even within ourselves on our side, can find common ground, how much more powerful would we be to push some of these initiatives forward? So, while I believe that the activisms and that way of campaigning and participating in government is great and it started in the Obama area, I think we're still evolving into a way where that activism can be effective. So that's what I feel about the activism. Um, so about the Affordable Care Act and it not being truly right, universal health care, anything like that.
No, I'm not
We
saying
have
even single payer. I am saying what Obama himself proposed originally was a public option.
Yes, yes, but he had to. I'd read one of the books that was talking about this. I can't remember what it is right now, but there has to be. It started like that, but he could have done an executive order, right? And just said, we are going to push through these things and make it happen. But he took it through the system so that it compromised with what everybody wants in the House and the Senate. And I think if you remember at that time, he had an entire Senate or House was like against him. They would block everything that he proposed. So but that's okay, right? That is the value of diverse voices and making sure that it's not the will of just one person.
The problem with Biden and Obama was that they didn't sell their bills. They didn't sell the problem before selling the solution. And Obama has had for 13 months. It took for 13 months for the Affordable Care Act to. So they instead of they were behind closed doors talking to their Republican friends to get into the middle of the way, and the people were left in the shadows about what was happening. And only at the very end, in the town halls, not even the Democratic congressman who supported the bill knew what it was in the bill. So that was terrible, and that obviously doesn't help activism, because what are you going to sell if you don't know what's in the bill? What has but and that reinforces. And I was a volunteer for Obama, but that reinforces my position is that only the extremes have been able to impose their version of policy. But the other well-intentioned activist groups that were in the middle were practically ignored. They were used to mobilize activism, to fill town halls, but nothing else.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and that's my concern, because, for instance, I believe, for instance, in black issues, the Reverend Barber's Poor People campaign, that they are heirs of the legacy of Martin Luther King, are pretty much ignored. They are practically trapped in their own echo chamber, and they have the message of Martin Luther King that is very similar to the when it comes to economic justice, is very similar to FDR's. So
Yeah.
that's my problem. So that activism has led themselves to be engaged in disciplined campaigns instead of selling their policy and then making politicians accountable. Do you see the other way around?
I can see it, but I think what I'll counter that with is I agree with everything you're saying. It has changed, right? But it's not going to change back. The solution is in evolving with what the people need. So you actually said it yourself. I don't know if you caught it, but you said that Obama and Biden did not sell or
Mhm.
market what they were doing to the people enough, and it was happening in the chambers and this and that. We as Americans have now evolved to expect being sold an idea. Tell me why it's good. Keep me engaged. I need to be communicated with and told what it is all the time because now I don't trust you, right? Now I feel like I know more about institutions, so I need to know more.
So that's
I need to feel like
that,
I'm involved. And that's different, right? The government of 20 years ago, where it's like, I elected you, here's my vote, I trust you to go and do the best thing for me. This is a different America. And guess what? It's never going to go back to that America. So we need to now understand that these are the needs that people are demanding more transparency. They want to know what's going on. They don't want it to be clouded with all of this confusion. And I'm going to demand more from our candidates is don't get up there and keep on pushing for why we are different. We need to push for the things that are all the same so that the lowest common denominators of the entire population can be met and not just for certain groups of people.
And don't come to me telling me that I have to vote for this candidate
Yeah.
because Trump is bad, because even Trump supporters know that Trump is bad. Give me a reason to vote. And that's why,
Yes.
for instance, the case of Mandani and Cuomo. Mandani, I disagree with his proposals, but he tackled bread and butter issues and bread and butter issues, and that's why he beat Cuomo that kept repeating the wasted line since 2024 that Trump is bad, Trump is bad, Trump is bad. You
There's
need
only
to.
so far. Yeah. Like, I mean, are you solving anything? Yeah, we all know. We all know. Like he's bad, right? And it's just I think the Democrats have to, which was our original topic, right? I think it all goes back to they need to shift the trajectory. There's no way we're going back to a expectations of the Democratic Party of a decade ago even. Like we need to change and listen to what the people want. And we want them to have more of a backbone. If something is fundamentally wrong, they need to speak up and not lash out in a way or have a big whatever, but work together.
And you don't have to have an only one position. Let me put this,
Yeah.
but you have to have just reasonable positions. For instance, I am a follower of FDR. Yet I am aware that many people, because they don't know, you ask the average voter what the New Deal was about, and they don't know, or
Mhm.
because they are they don't have sympathy for big government. But you have the FDR legacy in the case of the role of government, but you also have the Al Gore's legacy that is a more pro-capitalist version of the role of government, and yet you see that they have been unable to counter Dutch narrative about the role of government with neither of those options. So that tells you a lot, right?
So I think another thing that I'm realizing through these journeys is historically the presidency is very important, but they're like a talking figurehead in the end, right? The issue is there's an entire ecosystem around them as well. And then I'll talk about this in two ways. One is that the ecosystem of the funding and that the ways that they know financially they're going to get their agendas across. And then the second is the pandering of the administration around them. So, I believe a big reason we can have these presidents that have these ideals of what they want to get done. But I believe that they are also at the mercy of capitalism. If they make a decision that's going to severely affect, let's say, big oil's bottom line, it's not going to get pushed through. The lobbyists, the big money to protect their interests are insane. I mean, tobacco did this to America in the past. Even though we know public health crisis, how much did we have to fight for literally our health? Second. So I guess I'm saying is like we need to realize that even the president is limited in power and so heavily influenced, which is why I think Trump is trying to do the executive order thing to like not have to deal with that sort of stuff, but just going about it the wrong way. But the other thing is, I wonder, okay, Trump is one person. He is one demagogue. How we have to understand that there is an entire ecosystem of intelligent, capable people around him that are also like, yeah, this is a good idea. Yeah, let's do this. Okay, keep doing it. Or here's a new idea. Push this, say that. Like, it's not just like one villain. That's what I'm saying. If you chop off this is institution
Yeah.
issue, and removing Donald Trump is just not going to solve it, right? Like,
I know,
we,
yeah, it's that on that we agree,
yeah.
and that explains the discredit of government, and the Democrats should be concerned about that because Democrats need government to work, and
Not just Democrats. We all need government to work because,
Since the Obama administration, uh,
well, that's the
Rani,
thing though. We
if
all need government to work because government is the only thing that works for us.
Rani.
We need the government. I know people don't trust the government and they're upset about it.
Mhm.
People need to understand the government is the only thing that truly works for us. The government is public service. The government is our representation. The government works from our tax dollars. It belongs to the people. And if we continue to offload the care of our society to these, massive companies, guess what? They don't work for us. Like Meta doesn't work for us. Yeah, they'll invent new things and do charity for things, but like they don't owe us anything. We are a consumer. We have to put our trust into the government and make it new and shiny again, because that's the thing that we have to actually represent us. The
That
government.
is true. So it's the corruption is institutionalized and affects both Democrats and Republicans. That brings me back to the New Deal era. What allowed Roosevelt to redefine the role of government and get such support that he got wide majorities in both chambers and was reelected 3 times? It was that he used the power. He was not timid like Democrats that don't want to offend their friends on the other side of the aisle. He was bold. He welcomed their hatred. You remember that phrase? And use the power of government to better the lives of people. And that's why what you don't see in the case of the last Democratic administrations. So you see some episodic examples like the child tax credit, but in general, you don't see the kind of boldness FDR had in during the times of the New Deal, and that's a problem. So you have to regain that kind of trust that could allow you to break into this institutionalized corruption,
Mhm.
institutionalized corruption that was that even in the Trump times of Roosevelt crystallized in the Liberty Foundation. Uh, is that you need to provide results. You at least you have to provide ideas. And the New Deal was experimentation. It was sometimes they change their policies in agriculture, in manufacturing. But they were bold at implementing things. In the case of Biden, you can see that only in the case of manufacturing, but in other issues, you find them wanting. While the inflation was the uncertainty associated to inflation was causing great stress in American families, and that's what destroyed his chances. So that's why I favor so much starting with ideas, not with candidates, because
Mhm.
candidates are going to, if those candidates are cape to this institutionalized corruption because they want fund donors to keep being reelected, they are going to burn not only themselves, but they are going to also burn you, the activists who supported them, unless you demand concessions on ideas. But
Well,
for that, you need to have the ideas.
yeah, I 100% agree that we need to be behind ideas and not candidates, because the candidates are temporary and they should
Mhm.
be temporary for a reason. The ideas and the needs and the wants are what should remain evergreen, right? Not the person. Let's talk about the New Deal, because I also love the New Deal. If I ever
Mhm.
run for president one day, I'm telling you, one of my main platform pieces would be re-engaging in the maintenance of our infrastructure in the United
Mhm.
States of America. So, going back though, let's talk about the New Deal and why we think it was so effective. So, I'm going to go back to the sense of community and oneness as a country, right? What was proposed in the New Deal was putting all of Americans to work for the betterment of America. Let's build highways, railroads, get infrastructure up, right? We connected all of our national parks to each other, and then people were able to enjoy the great outdoors. So, as you said, there was a result, right? People knew what was the goal: connect America, make it better, work on our infrastructure, put people to work, and then they get to have more money, right? And it benefits the entire country.
And
So,
yeah, and you see, let me add something at some point. You see, for instance, the kind of boldness you find in unimaginable today, the Tennessee Valley Authority. these power companies that had shunned the countryside in terms of energy, they were cried in all languages when the Tennessee Valley Authority was launched. And when the TVA provided electricity, these private companies have denied the country, the countryside. They nobody pay attention to them because they saw they had the electricity, they had the benefits, and they supported the Tennessee Valley Authority. And that's the same kind of sentiment that you mentioned that connect the communities with the country that we had even in the times of Kennedy in his race to the moon, when he
Mhm.
supported investment in science and development that make the economy more productive.
Right. See, and that's going back to my thing of a common goal for the country to work on together for the betterment of each other. Um, but I talk a lot about consensus and community and coalition. However, I do want to acknowledge that disagreement is very valuable. If everybody just says yes and agrees, that's an echo chamber, right? Things are never going to get better or discussed. So I think it's actually, I mean, right now we're at extremes and radicalness, but healthy disagreement and conversation on the best way to approach things is so valuable, right? That's why we've had parliaments and congresses and etc. since the ancient time of the Greeks and the Romans, right? For that consensus, for that conversation to happen and not just one person with their limited knowledge, nobody knows everything,
Only,
making these decisions.
I would, for practical reasons, I would exclude the streams, because the middle point of the streams
No
produce only
result.
barren results, and those barren results discredit you at the center. Look at the case of immigration.
You
Uh,
know
the,
why, though? You know why? It's because they're the ones that are selling themselves. They're the ones that have the wow factor. They're the ones that get media attention. They're the ones that get more news cycles. So, again, it is going back to the ones that make the media the most money, are the loudest and most radical ones. And then they're the ones that are making it in to candidacy. Whereas those that are maybe like more empathetic or more caring or more knowledgeable or more focused on their communities, they're just not the loud marketing radical person that's catching the news cycles and then they're not getting the awareness to get voted into. It's like comes back to feeding that like capitalistic thing where the money is what gets people attention.
look look just at the case of immigration. The Gallup polls show that we had 2.5 decades of positive trends in favor of immigration until Biden took office. Then he outsourced the immigration policy to the naughty children, overgrown children of abolishers, and that trend declined because that was pure mayhem. And this is recovering now. But the matter is that because precisely what factors that you mentioned, that there is no media attention, there is no supplies of ideas, is that in 2028 the problem is that when voters want to rethink immigration, all they are going to see is again abolish ICE under a new face and the cruelty of MAGA, or cruelty of MAGA. Something I was predicting is in these times is that um, people remember the Biden's times, and they rationalize Trump's cruelty by saying we have already tried the humanitarian way, actually the mediocre way, Biden's, and it doesn't work. So whether we like it or not, we have to stick to Trump's. So that's the problem. People rationalize because at the end of the day, if they don't find anything in the middle, they only judge for the options they know. The childishness of abolishers and MAGA's cruelty, right?
Yeah. So I think this is another thing where we have to hope that our candidates in our Congress rise above these childish things, right? We have to urge our constituents to see everybody as human and come into things with solutions, right? We
But
can't just be
but
like,
I believe that that's not never going to come from candidates, because candidates try to say
because they just want votes.
is the Obama's school is try to be ambiguous to let everybody know believe what they want to believe. That has to come from activism.
Yeah.
Ideas must come from activism. So our candidates don't are not tempted to be ambiguous and let everybody know, everybody believe what they want to believe.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I go back to I hope that the new wave of candidates is listening to these activists, right? They're listening to what their constituents say. And they're listening to the other side also, right? Like if you're the president of the entire United States of America, not just like half of the United States of America. And your Congresses and Senate are supposed to also, in that image, think about what's best for the entire country while representing where they're voted from. So again, I'm going to go back to like how important government is, and we can't forget that because again, government is the only thing that invests back in our communities. Their job is to represent us, and it's our job to demand that of them. It's active citizenship, right? There, you can't just get everything you want without doing any work and not getting involved. So, us as citizens and or future candidates, you have to engage in the government in order to get from it. And the reason this matters even more than now, and why it has changed since FDR's New Deal and we're not prospering in that way, is let's take ourselves mentally back to that time. So let's say I live in a town in Idaho and I have a company there and it's doing really well. And we're making our product, we're making our widgets, and it behooves me to reinvest back in my town because then my workers are going to be happier, right? They're going to do better at work because they're happier at home. Okay, and then I'm doing even better now. I should reinvest back in my community so there's more things to do here so that more people want to move here and then work for my company and then my company will do better, right? So before mass globalization, companies really cared about their communities and building up their communities, and there's a value in the people in their communities, right? However, now, if we take that same company in Idaho, they're going to be like, well, hiring the people in this town is kind of expensive. I'm going to hire somebody from another city, another state, or another country because it's the best for their bottom line. And now, they have no incentive to now reinvest back in that community, right? There's no point in them even being there to reinvest back into it. So we have to accept that those days are long gone and it's changed. So those companies aren't going to be doing that, which is why it puts more emphasis back on our government. Our government is a thing that's going to help us and we need to be involved in it.
Yeah, it's part of the. You don't even have to address that issue theoretically. You
Mm.
just have to have some. It's in history, from
Oh yeah.
FDR to Kennedy, passing through Eisenhower, Republican. That and those were the years where productivity grew the most and the middle class grew the most. So
Yes.
it's not that theoretically the government. No, no, it happened actually in history. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
proven. You don't. I'm not assuming. I'm not supposed to assuming
Yeah.
anything. It happened in real
Yep.
life, and yet Democrats. You see Democrats that cannot invoke the FDR or Kennedy or even Clinton. They just keep playing that.
And I think it's because Republicans and Democrats are all afraid of big money. It's corporations. They cannot boldly push through what they want to push through without upsetting the balance of these huge corporations that would hurt from those decisions. Imagine if we put together something where like you can't, outsource your work. It has to be in the United States or something. Like people, it would be calamity. I'm not proposing that that's the right solution for anything, but I'm just saying, right? Like they have to consider those things. And
or at least that the government has can present. So when a company moves from a community, it's because that improves their bottom line. So but there is a cost for that community. There is an externality. The matter is that that corporation should share the cost of that social cost with government, and government should be able to provide an option. That's unthinkable right now, and that's actually that also comes from the times of the New Deal, that increased taxes and use these all government programs against the depression to help those small communities or trades that were
yeah,
suffering the most during the depression. So, but you see that the Democratic Party is not even working. If they are too, not, if they don't like FDR, at least they should like Clinton, because if they don't even like Clinton, who they like? So, you see, and that's the problem. So, why to for a leader to regain the trust? Because what you have said a few minutes ago is pretty much is Democrats have to regain the trust of the people. And to regain the trust of the people, they have to be able to solve their issues. Because as much as the money in politics is a big problem, is a fundamental problem, you are not never going to run a campaign on that issue. But you can you can gain a campaign on housing, for instance, on better schools, on better apprenticeship programs, the things that touch the issues that are more salient for the people. And when you have that capital power, like FDR, that cracked down in monopoly power with the FTC and the Justice Department of his time, you use that power to push back against the power of money in politics.
I agree. I think that is right. And it's unfortunate that how to play the game is you get in there, you get the votes and you get your seat, and then you can make the change, right? Then I can do what I want and prove it. But then like you're selling people something that's like not what you're actually gonna do. So we have to, like you just said it yourself, like you're never gonna run on big money out of politics. But like, why not? If we
Well,
all start saying it,
gain the political capital by solving bread and butter issues. And when you have that political capital, use it to crack down in money in politics.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. That's fair also that, that could be a secondary thing, but I really believe that that trickles down to everybody.
Mm.
Like those problems are affecting us. Like even if we think about right now, if we increase our education, we make it better, which we should. Our children are our future, and we provide more opportunities. Where are they going to go work?
Uh,
Everyone's unemployed. And so like then it's just like, why
That's
are we
that's part of the role of government.
you're right?
The
Right.
matter is that even though I agree that, for instance, the role of the money in politics is a larger problem than education or housing, people don't see it that way. So
Well,
if you want to crack down on those, you first have to score some points on the issues that are salient
well, did you know that
for
the
people.
US actually has enough housing for all of America's population and all of the homeless people? There's enough
Uh,
housing. We don't need to
There,
build
there
anything else.
recently, there has been, for because of policies of this administration, there has been the even an oversupplies in some regional markets. But normally, by the time Kamala Harris was running, there was a 4.5 million units gap between supply and demand in housing. So, and that was based on some that could have been solved very easily with, for instance, using a proposal made for the Brookings by the Brookings Institution for the Grid, centralized in the federal government permits for up to, let's say, those 4.5 million units. So that's the kind of bold action that could have allowed you.
Where the bold action could be the reason that there isn't enough housing is that they're all bought up by
That's a role, that's a factor, but I was checking, and it's not by far. It's more important in the case of, for instance, apartment complex, but in general, it's a secondary factor. The main factor is the 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 what is called NIMBYism, this zoning, the use of zoning to artificially reduce supply, and those then the role of the central the increase of power in the top 10 companies in construction, depending on regional markets. There is a CNBC report on that, so that they have more wider financial backs, and they can push aside smaller companies. So there is reduced competition. And when you have that, you have, for instance, what they found in this study was that they were delaying construction and delivery in order to gain with the increase of prices. And then comes what you mentioned, that is the participation of hedge funds in buying multifamily projects. Now, then I wanted to move to the alternatives, the most visible alternatives now in activism. That is the David Hawkes' position, but unfortunately, as I mentioned so far I hope they change, they evolve. But the last time I checked, David Hawkes just demanded that we vote for young people because they are young people. No, you have to give the voter a reason, not to say that they are young is not enough. And
Right.
then you have Rebellion Pack from Jake Jugor, that has a list of the of demands on policy that are a step forward, but still I find it a bit wanting in terms of details. But at least is some step forward. It could be improved a lot. But unfortunately, besides those two, I don't see much opposition to the establishment, right?
I 100% agree. I do. It's so disappointing because I even thought running as a candidate, right, and
Mhm.
being involved in the local Democratic committee and our Massachusetts state committee, which I mean, Massachusetts is like the most Democratic state there ever is. I thought that immediately following the election and what all the candidates, that there would be information being sent out to everybody that's like, this is our unifying message. This is our plan. This is what we want you guys to be out there saying, like anything. Like, okay, so this is our pivot. Like, this is the strategy. N Nothing. Like, there's a nothing. Thank God, like Bernie and AOC were just trying to do something because people
Mhm.
needed something. But like they need to be doing their job over there. Like what was the party doing? So I completely agree. Like and I'm still waiting. It's like been months now. It crickets. There's no big statement. All
So
they've done is knock down that
so
guy,
so
David Hogg.
it would be fair to say that DNC has a real role is to enforce a system in which activists or that are not from the streams to which they pander, activists that are in the center just have to complain, cheer up for the lead, for the candidate, and shut up because they are not allowed to contribute with ideas, with alternatives. And that brings me to Mandani. For instance, I could understand. I don't. I disagree with many of his ideas, but at least he has ideas. And what should have been DNC is giving him a cold shoulder. If they have better ideas, they should try to broker with him an agreement to get those better ideas and to instead of trying to sabotage Mamdani, because Mamdani, whether you like it or not, he beat Cuomo. And now Cuomo is running to split the Democratic vote with the blessing of DNC. That's
Um,
you see,
yeah,
so if you, for instance, if you disagree with his proposal to freeze rent, then propose an alternative that Mandani can sell. If you disagree with his proposal of the supermarket, local supermarkets, then propose an alternative that Mandani can sell. Get an agreement and get back behind him. But that's not that's not what you see. So DNC is pretty much the enforcer of the establishment, right?
it can certainly seem that way. I would like to make the point, though, I do not think that there is value in recreating the wheel or having votes then go to a new third party or independent, right? Just because you don't like the Democratic Committee. I really believe all of those efforts just have to be put into evolving and modifying our current structure and Democratic Committee that we have. And I think that's where I understand people get so frustrated. They're like, I'm just done with that. And I don't identify as a Democrat. But the thing is, I'm going to go back to that active citizenship thing that I said. The government works for us, but we have to let the government know what we need. So, just like the Democratic Party, we need to be involved. When I say we, I don't mean just the candidates. I mean like everybody. Like you need to be aware and involved and have your voice be heard. Otherwise, they are just going to make decisions in a vacuum. And I think we've been also blessed and lucky with this new global marketplace and global community that we have. But then we're feeling like, but I'm not getting what I want at home. But you have to engage there at home. You have to reinvest in your community. You have to show up to those events. You have to go to the school board meetings. Eat like if you want it there, you have to be there and participate. It's
Now,
not
you,
just gonna
you,
happen.
you have mentioned something that was I also brought in our pre-interview. That is that the silence of the Democratic Party. So the changes brought by Trump are so traumatic, and that the silence of the Democratic Party pretty much invites the presence of a third party, which I am afraid of,
Me too.
because the a third party would only split. But it's such the discredit, only 27% support the Democratic Party, that it could turn the Democratic Party into a permanent minority. So a third party is a risk.
The thing is like, I don't know who's listening to Democratic Party. They should all be brilliant people. But if you're listening to this, even if you don't have a plan right now, you have to let us know that you're working on a plan. Like they need to say something. They need to acknowledge that, wow, this sucks. We messed up. We know we need to pivot. This is our plan, and this is how you can engage with us. It's not ready yet, but we're working on it. Do you know what I mean? Except it's just been like silence. So even if it's like we're working on it, you have to communicate to me that you're working on it.
To regain trust. So make a mea culpa, because you are not going to deceive anybody by pretending that 2024 never happened.
Right.
And even the voters were very generous with Kamala Harris, because you remember, since Biden dropped out, and in the next month and a half, when she came with his economic populist plan, voters put her above Trump. She could have won had the elections taken place in that month and a half, and yet the Democratic Party is not willing to learn. They are still blaming misogyny and racism for Kamala Harris' loss,
No,
which is
no.
clearly false if you see the numbers. Now,
No, no.
finally, I wanted to give you the last word and mention just one issue to which you are very connected. The young vote is on the side, has turned to Trump, and I guess it's going to get disappointed, but in 2024, it turned in favor of Trump. That says a lot in terms of disappointment and the need of change, right?
Yes. So that is a statistic that is correct. However, it's only correct in context. So it means the vote turned to Trump from those who voted. I believe issue-wise, a lot of people that don't agree with Trump just didn't vote. Like this new generation is, and I'm the ripe age of 37 or 38. I am 38 now, so I'm not a young bird anymore, but it is the fact that this new generation that I love, and I am going to break the cycle of us saying that every next generation is the worst and we're better than them. They are disengaged from the government, and they have every right to be disengaged because they don't see the value in it because they're a part of a global community that's run by big brands and corporations, right? So they're not engaged they didn't vote. They're like, this is dumb. I'm not voting. However, Trump was able to capture a significant population of these white men that were feeling ostracized. And I understand, right? They felt villainized, and I can understand why they felt villainized, and then they found community, so they went there. And then the other people just didn't vote. So I'm gonna say it is a bad situation, obviously, but I won't say it's that like the young of America has turned towards Trump. I would say there's a
No,
population that
that's why
turned,
I made
and
that
they
precision.
showed up to vote.
In 2020, in 2024, it's a kind of vote of protest similar to the case of Hispanics. It's
They
not
just didn't vote. This didn't show up. And it's like we have to show our children the value of government and the role of it. And we have to start teaching that in school. So instead of having classes maybe completely dedicated to learning how insurance and interest rates work for when they open a credit card, we should also have classes that show, instead of just like historic civics, current civics. How does the public government work? How is your school funded? What is the price of well-being? How can we calculate the effect that this will have on people's lives and happiness versus just the cost of it? Like it needs to be a fundamental shift. And it may sound like I'm being extreme, but it's not extreme.
No,
Other
no,
countries practice this and it's working and it's fine.
no. It's how the young people is going to get acquainted with government if you don't tell them in the first place what the government is there for.
And they need to understand that the government isn't like your mommy or daddy, like they just take care of you,
Mhm,
right? Like citizenship is an active role as well. And
mhm.
your tax dollars are funding all those things that are happening, so you should be engaged. But that's a complete mental mind shift. And again, if I ever run for president one day, this will be the second thing on my platform, is to reinstitute those elements into the foundation of our children's curriculum so that they grow up understanding that and they grow up to be engaged and we truly do have a democracy because I think it's been a little bit lost. And the people that are adults now and we're going to get older, are going to be kind of set in a way. And if you go back to Model UN 101, you change a people by changing their children. So we really have to reinvest into our children the future that we want to see.
That I completely agree. Yet we have to be careful because we cannot keep pushing our luck because remember what happened in Eastern Germany. The people got so disappointed for so many years of the treatment given by the West that they turned into the stronghold of the AFD. Something similar to what Thomas Frank described in What's the Matter with Kansas in the case of Kansas. So what the great risk here is that disappointment on bread and butter issues could turn into cultural attitudes that could metastasize and then that's much more difficult to reverse.
But listen, we have to push our luck. We have to be idealists. I think that's a part of being strong, right? I
No,
think that's a part of the toughening up.
push our luck. I mean, in the terms of complacency, we have to.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like we need to act now because if we continue to
Mhm.
coast, it's going to get bad. 100%. I agree. People need to stop being scared. We need to be, I know it seems scary to be like, ooh, my 401k might be affected, or like I'm not going to hit those margins and the investors are going to be mad. But the other option is continue down this path and then deal with like a rebellion or like a revolution or like war instead of just compromising money, and putting people's lives and their value over those dollars. And it's altruistic, it's idealist, but like we need to be. We need to be.
And yet, you see, for instance, on the side of the MAGA base, that they are more concerned about the Epstein files that they should deserve attention, yes, but they are more concerned about the Epstein files than about the effects of Trump's tariff.
It's selling, it's marketing, it's
Yeah,
media. What's going to make the news cycles the most money to continue to fluff up? Like, it's disappointing. I mean, on so many levels, right? It's just, I love free media and I think it's great. It's just people don't know where to go. Right? We're being fed information and spoon-fed information that's going to make every single one of these channels more money.
and that's why we need a better brand of activism. I don't know if you know how ALEC and Heritage Action work. They use, for instance, the garbage that comes from the Heritage Foundation, and they are pretty much facilitators. They connect this with media, with candidates, with activists, and their role is pretty much to coordinate the effect. So the final marketing campaign is much more effective, and they are effective.
And it is effective. Like it works.
But you don't see anything like that on the side of the center left.
And that's where I think it's one of those things that we just have to accept that this arena has evolved and humans, we have evolved in our appetite for the way that we consume things. So the Democratic Party's you gotta
Mm.
catch up. It's not
And
gonna change and go back to a place before it was a media
that's not
circus.
going to happen. It's the social civility, social society, excuse me, that has to check the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party can save us. And I hope your organization it plays a role because you see in terms of activism there is very little to be proud of. Having said that, I hope we can continue this conversation in the next weeks. And for now, thank you.
Thank you so
And
much.